It's not funny. It's a good deed. What does this say?
What is that?
From the wherever.
What does it say?
Is it Vietnamese?
Yes, there's Vietnamese and English. There's an English name.
Oh my god.
We respectfully request the Sangha great virtues for the sake of this assembly and all living beings. Please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach and guide us how to end birth and death, leave suffering and attain bliss, and quickly realize non-birth. Cung thính đại đức tặng thịnh, vì thứ pháp hội cập nhật thiết chúng sanh, kinh chuyên diệu pháp luân giao đạo ngã môn, như á liêu sanh thoát tư ly khổ đạc lạc, túc chứng vô sanh. Homage to the Blessed, Noble, and Perfectly Enlightened One. Nam mô Sa Đan Thô Sư Chế Đô Ye A La Hờ Đi San Miao San Pu Tô Xie. Nam mô Tát Đắc Tha Tu Ya Đa Ya La Đề Tam Miểu Tam Bồ Đà Toa. The unsurpassed, profound, subtle, and wonderful Dharma in 100,000 million aeons is difficult to encounter. Now that I'm able to see and hear, I will receive and maintain it. I vow to fathom the thus come one's true and actual principles. Wu shang sheng sheng wei miao fa bai jian wan jie nan zao yu, wo jin jian wen de shou chi, yuan jie ru lai zhen shi yin. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Great Master, Sixth Patriarch, Great Master, YongHua, all monks and nuns, and all good advisors, Emitofuo. 诸佛菩萨六祖师父上人，各位出家人，各位上智师，阿弥陀佛。Chư Phật Bồ Tát, Khánh Thưa Lục Tổ, Hòa Thượng Tiên Hóa, quý thầy cô và quý vị thiện tri thức, A Di Đà Phật. Hello everyone, today is the 12th of February 2022. We are gathered here to continue discussing the Sixth Patriarch Sutra. We're redoing Sixth Patriarch Sutra one more time. So this time we are now on slide 365 of chapter 1. All right. It never ceases to amaze me, the depth of Master Huineng's certain teaching. It's just fascinating to me. I've never seen anyone alive who has this command of the certain teaching that Master Huineng has. It's just, so it's a real pleasure to, even though we do it a second time, I think we are gaining more and more insights the more we look into it. That's the nature of the Dharma. If you look at it multiple times, you will discover more and more depth as with time. All right. Text. Supreme Bodhi must be obtained at the very moment of speaking, recognizing that the self-nature is not produced nor extinguished.
Wu shang菩提，须得言下士自本心见自本性不生不灭。
All right. 366. text. In recognizing the original mind at all times, in every thought, you yourself will see that the 10,000 dharmas are unobstructed.
于一切时中，念念自见，万法无滞。
Okay, 367. The great teacher says, and again, he is one of the biggest teachers in Buddhism, especially in a Chan school. He's probably unsurpassed, in my humble opinion. Okay, he says, Bodhi must be obtained at the very moment of speaking. What does it mean? Anyone would care to comment on this? Okay? Bodhi must be obtained at the very moment of speaking. 是智本性. Okay? So this is the Chinese here. This is where if you want to get to the deeper depth of these teachings, you need to go back to the Chinese text, because the translation is not as good as the original wording of this Chinese monk. Okay? So when we translate, we lose some of it. We use our filters. When we translate, we filter through our own personal filters, our own attachments, our own discrimination. That's why on such important teachings from a great teacher, I highly recommend that you go back to the Chinese text. That's why I have the belief that all of my disciples who are serious about becoming a Dharma master need to learn Chinese. And you go back to the Chinese. Okay, so it says, Chinese text, it said, this supreme or unsurpassed Bodhi, meaning what? Meaning it is enlightenment of the Buddhas. The enlightenment of the Buddhas is unsurpassed. All right? This is the biggest attainment that any of us can ever do. Okay? There is, it's called unsurpassed Bodhi, unsurpassed enlightenment. Bodhi here refers to enlightenment. Okay? Must be obtained. Okay? So this supreme enlightenment here can be obtained. And the only way to attain supreme enlightenment, in other words. So far, so good. Pay attention to this, because he's planting seeds in all of us about sudden enlightenment. This great teacher typifies how certain teaching must be transferred, must be conferred upon the next generation. So he says, must be obtained, okay? Must be attained at the very moment of speaking. Okay? So it says, this supreme, this unsurpassed enlightenment must be obtained at the very moment of speaking. So that the very moment of speaking, like I'm speaking right now, and you're speaking, when you speak words, when you speak, you are in a position to be able to recognize and realize and obtain your enlightenment. You don't need to invest in cryptocurrency, you don't need to get married, you don't need anything. And this is the nature of enlightenment. It's right there with you. You don't need any app. So far, so good? Okay. How do you recognize it? At that moment of realization of attaining the Supreme Bodhi, it's by recognizing by recognizing that the original mind is not produced, not destroyed. Okay? What's this original mind? This refers to the Buddhist quintessential concept, that is, your original mind. Originally, your mind is already enlightened. And over time, because of bad circumstances, that you give rise to more and more confused thoughts, layers upon layers upon layers, one lifetime, and then many lifetimes, limitless lifetimes on top of that. So you see, you have countless, uncountable layers upon layers of confusion. All right? So that's why, as we are where we are today, we cannot recognize our original mind anymore. And this is the human tragedy. We cannot help ourselves. We are buried so deep. There's so many layers of false thinking, so many layers of confusion that we are overwhelmed. Speaking overwhelmed, being overwhelmed. Look at how overwhelming life is right now. One lifetime, you're not even dead yet, you find life overwhelming. Is it just me? Me and Daniel. Life is more and more overwhelming, isn't it? Why? Because you have layers upon layers upon layers of confusion. We become more and more confused. All right? And unless we do something about it, we get further and further away from our original mind, our originally enlightened nature. Is that clear? It's only in Buddhism that they would tell us about this. This is the intrinsic nature of our human existence, is that we possess this wonderful treasure called the enlightened mind that we don't know how to get back to. It's not stolen. It doesn't belong to Francis. We own it. We have a piece of it. We have this like a stock ownership of this wonderful thing called Buddha nature. We own it. It's part of us. Okay? And yet we cannot find our way back there. We just know we own it, and that's it. We have no clues on how to access it, how to activate it, how to take advantage of it. So far, so good. And the sixth patriarch says, do you realize, in order for you to to connect back to your original mind, your original enlightenment, okay, it can happen at the very moment that you speak, okay? You make a speech, you say something. At that very moment, you realize that, okay? You must realize that the self-nature is not produced nor extinguished. Any problems? What does it mean the self-nature is not produced nor extinguished? I don't expect you to become enlightened right now, but I need you to memorize this. I need you to at least have a notion of what it means. It's not about understanding. It's about recognizing at that moment when you speak, and you recognize at the very moment you're speaking that your original self-nature is neither produced nor extinguished. That's why it's called sudden enlightenment. You speak and originally my self-nature is neither produced nor extinguished. And one day, I assure you, I look at all of you, including a lady in the wheelchair, one day, because of the seeds you planted today, someday you'll realize it. Okay? One day you say, like the Buddha, like Shakyamuni Buddha. He says, originally my mind is enlightened. It's just that because with false thinking, with attachments, I can't see it. I'm attached to stuffed dogs. Anyone? You see that? Because you attach to dogs or cats. That's why, see? That's why you cannot see your originally, fundamentally enlightened self-nature. Yeah, isn't that fascinating? All right. And then when you recognize that originally enlightened mind that you possess, but you own it. Again, I cannot stress enough the fact that it's not something outside of you. It's not something you have to go search somewhere like a treasure, searching for the treasure island. No, the treasure is inside of you. The treasure is for you you have to manage to find a way to unravel that, to recognize that, and how that's in recognizing it you're able to use it. You don't know what it is, you cannot use it. You can talk all you want. Scholars talk about these concepts. Buddhism, we talk about this and then we show you how to recognize it. Does it make sense? Knowledge is not enough. Knowledge is just useless to you. Wait, I did not see you cooking in the kitchen, now is you here? Okay. Okay, so you see, in recognizing this original mind, okay, then at that time, at all times, in every single thought, okay, I mean 24 hours a day, every time a thought arises, I miss my cat, I love my cat. At that very moment, including that thought, you yourself will see that the 10,000 dharmas are unobstructed. Meaning what? The 10,000 dharmas are unobstructed. Wu, zhi, right? What does zhi? Chi. Chinese character here. What does Chinese character mean? Stagnant. Okay, stagnant. Stagnant. It's like stuffed animals. They don't change anymore. All right? So it says the 10,000 Dharma, meaning everything in the world is unobstructed. Meaning what? They change constantly. It doesn't matter how much you want it, how badly you want it, it will keep on changing on you. You change. He changes. Everything changes. It's the nature of existence. It changes. Nothing remains the same, except for the self-nature. Never changes. Anything else, everything else changes. Is that clear? So that's called wisdom. Meaning what? You're no longer attached. Okay? When you see the kid, when they're young, enjoy the kid at that age. And then they grow older and they evolve themselves. And we have to learn to enjoy them as they evolve. Evolve until we become so annoying and say, why don't you run away from your money? Find your freedom. So you see, you enjoy, you You take life as it comes instead of grabbing on to, oh, I must have it, otherwise my life is meaningless. Otherwise, I'd be so unhappy. Does it make sense? Life happens, and you enjoy it. You accept it. You embrace it. You don't need to hang on to the past. Adjust constantly. And that's called wisdom. Okay? The 10,000 dharmas are unobstructed. They change. They constantly evolve. There's nothing you can do about it. Nothing ever remains the same, except for something that you have no idea what it is right now, your self-nature, your Buddha nature. Okay? As you develop the skills, it will be clearer. These concepts will be clearer, and you see that the Buddhist teaching is very consistent from beginning to end. We don't try to mislead you in order to hook you along for this road, and then once you discover we've been pulling your legs, then you drop up disappointed. Oh my God, he's a cold after all. I'm going back to Korea with my stuffed animals. Okay, it's 368. Text: when one is true, all are true. And the 10,000 states themselves are thus. The thus mind just is true reality.
一真一切真，万境自如如，如如之心即是真实。
See, isn't it amazing these profound principles can be expressed with very simple words? It's nothing fancy at all, okay? Nothing pedantic. It's something so fancy wording that no one understands, okay? Next, text. If one can see it, that is exactly the self-nature of Supreme Bodhi.
若如是见，即是无上菩提之自性也。
You see how beautiful this great teacher, this Chinese person here, is how wise he is, how brilliant he is. Remember, I just explained to you, I just stated that there's something called the self-nature. Everything is unobstructed. The 10,000 states are unobstructed, and therefore implying that only the self-nature is constant, remains the same. Otherwise, everything else evolves, everything else changes. And then he explains later, okay, what is the self-nature thing? That's why he said next. He says, let me tell you, give you a clue, this insight. When one is true, all is true. And the 10,000 states themselves are thus. What does it mean? We're on slide 370. What does it mean? One is true, all are true. Anyone would care to comment on this? Come on, this is a time for you to show that all the years we invested in you to teach you about Buddhism. And your ancestors and your great ancestors has been giving you all these Buddhist seeds in your DNA, in your genes. Now's the time to use them. What does it mean? One is true, all are true. This is typical Buddhist wisdom. Hey, did you have yellow noodle soup? Did we save some for him? You gave him some? Yes, and the wife too? Yeah. And the son too? We're talking about one is true, remember? One is true, all are true. What does it mean? Isn't it amazing? You can find that one that is true then everything else is true. That's what it means. So which is the one that's true? This is so Chinese. This is so. I'm beginning to appreciate it more as I get older. Well, desperate, if you will. Okay, because it is so elegant, and yet if you're not careful, you will misunderstand what it means. And this is a problem with the profound teaching. It is so profound that unless you're careful, there's so many ways to misinterpret it. Yes, go ahead, Orange.
Emitofuo Master, one is truth and everything is true. That my understanding is that when you wake up from the dream, then no more dreaming. Yeah.
Wake up from the dream, then everything is real.
And you see things as it is, no more like false
So
thinking.
after I wake up in the morning, everything becomes real?
That means you see, when you see your nature, then that means you wake up from the dream. So
How the seeing your nature becomes one is true? See, these people, they know so much. All the Buddhist jargon. You see yourself nature and you become Buddha. This is why Master Huineng's teaching is so difficult to mess with him. He says, one is true. Why does it say self-nature? See your self-nature. The seeing your self-nature is later for losers. I mean, for sheeps who don't understand. That's why later the Patriarch said, see your self-nature. But the sixth Patriarch says, well, one is true. It has nothing to do. There's nothing that says self-nature. Huh? Francis, you see any self-nature in here? It's only pure arithmetic. You ask me, I've learned math as a professional training. Math, this is one. When one is true, all is true. All are true. What does it mean? Isn't it interesting? One is true, meaning what? When you are true. That's one. The only one that matters. Not your mother. Not your wife. Not your wife. Not your daughter. Not your tough dog. Okay? One is true. One here is about you. When you see your true self. Okay? And the jargon is when you see your self-nature. Then you are able to see the truth. Until that happens, that moment that you can see, you see how beautiful the teaching is. The moment you see your self-nature, you become true. That's what it means. Because what's the point in seeing your self-nature? The Chan people says, see your nature, become enlightened. And it really means when you're able to have that insight about who you really are, you're able to perceive the truth about yourself, meaning you become true to yourself, then everything else you look at becomes true. You no longer are confused. When one is true, you no longer are confused about yourself. All is true, you're no longer confused about everything else. Everything. Your wife, your children, your job, money, cryptocurrencies, gold, Vegas, Cirque du Soleil. Huh? Is that clear? Okay, all true. And what else? The patriarch also says, and this is this is, you can tell that this monk here is incredible. You see, I don't know you can appreciate, but I love the way he puts them together, the three concepts. Okay, let me remind you what the three concepts are. It's just ingenious. I've never seen a person alive who can formulate, express things with this kind of profundity, in very simple terms, in this kind of three structures. Okay. He says, first of all, this enlightenment, supreme enlightenment, meaning Buddha enlightenment, must be attained at the very moment of speaking. Okay, how? By recognizing that your self-nature is neither produced or extinguished. Premise number one. So far, so good? Okay. And he says, why do you want to recognize it? Then when you at that state, when you recognize your self-nature, okay, then you see that you can see everything. Nothing can obstruct you from seeing whatever you want to see. Whatever you want to see, you can see the truth in everything. So far, so good. That's why you want to recognize your self-nature. Okay? And then he says, furthermore, step number 3. Okay? Furthermore, know that when one is true, all are true. Okay? When you are no longer confused, when your mind is no longer confused, meaning it becomes true, that's the one there, the one mind, your mind becomes true, okay? And then everything else is also true. It's so profound, so beautiful how he builds up these theorems, if you will. All right? And furthermore, when all are true, and furthermore, the 10,000 states themselves are the us. Okay? The 10,000, when you see the truth, when you see everything else is true, she's a demon, that's a dog lover, and so forth. You see the truth in everywhere you look, then you realize that the 10,000 states themselves are thus. So remember, the concept is everything changes. Remember? Once you have wisdom, you see everything changes, nothing ever remains the same. But actually, you also, because your wisdom, you realize that all these changes are also thus, unmoving. What is that called? The middle way. It changes, yet it doesn't change. It's not what it seems. A simple expression for the uninitiated, the unawakened. It's not what it seems like to you. It is, and yet it isn't at the same time. That's why it's called the middle way. Okay? And that's why I made a comment here. This is why part of our Chan training is that you go through these states of leg pains, of hurting, huh? Unbearable pain. There you can't stand, you have to run away. Okay?
Too bad we can't grab the food that's offered to the Buddha.
Oh, you have to go get food to offer the Buddha. It's not running away from pain. Or running away from women who are screaming, or complaining, who are crying. Okay? All those things, okay? All those training, all those poor women who are in great pain right now, worse than delivering babies. Did you realize that? I'm serious. After you go through this chant training here, that we send you, hey boys, you ask mommy. Hey boys, ask mommy. Compare the leg pains when you for delivery is that as bad as the leg pains. Hey Apple, you gave up already? 3.5 hours? Oh wow, look at how happy she is. And an hour and a half ago, she looked at me and said, I want to kill someone. I want to go home. Go eat. Yeah. He said, I will go home to my husband when he's nicer to me. And now I realize my husband is such a nice person compared to you. Because I walked in there, and first thing he said, will you tell her to let me unbuckle my legs, please? I said, what? Can't we say hello first? And now look how happy she is. You see? And that's a proof that you learn through this chant practice here, pain or pleasure, you are unmoving. You can embrace it. That's why it means by the 10,000 states, actually thus, meaning you are unmoving when faced with the 10,000 things out there. Someone yells at you, no problem. Your wife says, I love you, oh, watch out. Okay? So far so good? Okay. And that, then when you see the 10,000 state, when you see that everything's unmoving, then exactly the self-nature of Supreme Buddha. Then you have confirmation that Supreme Bodhi, your light nature, not just inside of you, but also outside of you, it's all part of the same something called the self-nature. Okay? It's exactly how the self-nature is. Thus us unmoving inside, and thus us unmoving outside. The world is at peace. Even when the bomb explodes right next to you, you're still at peace. Your wife yells at you, you're still at peace. Your stuffed dog dies, you're still at peace. All right? Questions? If everyone still awake? Kong has a question. Hallelujah.
Hello, Master. I have a question. So when you are enlightened and see the Buddha nature, you still have the karmic retribution that can harass you. In that case, do you still remain peace when your karmic retribution come and want you to suffer?
Yeah, good question. So now you awaken and you understand, you become enlightened, you see yourself nature, and meaning you become enlightened. However, the truth is the matter is that you still have this body, okay? And it's still subject to pains and aches and pains and headaches and thirst and hunger and cold. Yes? That's the nature of our body. So what to do? Can we put an end to all that pain and suffering? You see that at that point, then the pain and suffering and the sicknesses and the heartaches no longer bother you. Before it's unbearable to you. After you become enlightened, you just embrace everything as part of something that you must endure in order to repay your karmic debts. So the pain doesn't disappear. It's just that when your heart aches or you're depressed, it doesn't bother you. You can snap out of it. Whereas when you have no wisdom, you are just a victim. It's too overwhelming. Life is too overwhelming for you. After you become enlightened, life can still be overwhelming, but it doesn't bother you. Does it help? Because it means that you still live. Does it mean that after you become enlightened, you look at your wife and say, hey, honey, I'm enlightened. I can see the truth of you now. You are thus. I don't need to love you anymore. Good luck to you. Okay? No. After you become enlightened, you find your wife so much more adorable. She has all these mood swings, throw tantrums and so forth. You find them a lot more enjoyable than before. Does it make sense? So actually then, as something wonderful happens, it's a good question. Something wonderful happens. It means that you find life fascinating. You find life wonderful. You have no more fear. You have no more trepidation. You have no more hang-ups. You can embrace everything. You can embrace your husband with all his imperfections and his sweetness, everything. All right? 371, text. Go and think it over for a day or two. Compose another verse and bring it to me to see. If you have been able to enter the gate, I will transfer the rope and the Dharma to you. Oh, this is the fifth patriarch.
如且去一两日思维，更作一计将来。吾看如计若入得门，复如依法。
Okay. So the fifth patriarch says, why I just sat here, I don't expect you to understand. So this is a clue right there. The fifth patriarch looked at his disciples and he says, none of you is enlightened. Okay, but I'm going to give you the sudden enlightenment teaching here. Okay, and I don't expect you to understand. So what I want you to do, go and think it over for a day or two. Su Wei, okay, Su Wei here is the exactly 一两日, 1 or 2 days. 日 is days. 思维 is to ponder, not think. See, think is wrong. Go and contemplate it for the next 2 days. Meaning what? Go and meditate on what I just told you, these 3 premises. So far, so good? So the instruction, he says, I explained to you what you're supposed to understand, but you don't. Therefore, you should go and contemplate and meditate on this. Don't try to sit there and say, let me see what it means. What does the dictionary say about true? Oh, true means so. No, you go and you meditate. 思维 here actually means meditate on it. Those of you who listened to my first lecture on this sutra here, Okay, six Patriarch Sutra here. I bet you I never explained to you a Su way that way, okay? And this is why we're going through a second pass to weed out, to resolve all these things that I feel that the translation is inaccurate in that it doesn't convey the Chan teaching of a patriarch. And we can't blame them. These people who translated are not patriarchs. That's why they don't get it. Okay? So he said, I want you to go and contemplate and meditate on it for a day or two. Okay? And then after you meditated, okay, and here's what happens after you meditate. When you have a problem you can't solve, you don't understand, you meditate for a day or two, and then you compose a verse. What does it mean? Is that after you meditate a day or two, and naturally you'll be able to compose a verse. You can't keep meditating. Get it? That's what he means. He doesn't say that after one day or two you don't meditate and you must compose a verse. No, he says after a day or two, compose a verse if you can. You can't hang yourself. Don't hang yourself. You agree with me, Chinese person? Taiwanese person? Exactly what he means. It's not, you cannot take this literally. Okay? Go ahead, Kong.
Hello, I was wondering about this. In American Mahayana, are you expecting your disciples to compose verses in the future too? In Chinese or something?
No. I will never ask you to compose a verse in Chinese. Only in Vietnamese. Stupid question deserves a stupid answer. Okay, compose another verse. Okay, so he says, and bring it for me to see. Okay, and then I look at your verse, I can tell whether you enter the gate. Okay, enter the gate here refers to you become enlightened. You go after you become enlightened, it's like entering a gate that enables you to see things you could not see before. Meaning, what are things you cannot see before? You can see the truth. You're no longer confused. That's why I call Ruman, entering the gate. Okay? And that's why I call my disciples Ru. That's another meaning of the Ru thing, is that you're supposed to enter the gate. This, when we call you Ru, I call you Ru, is that you're on the path to enter the gate. You're being prepared to enter the gate. So you're very special. Too serious. Do I see Koreans smiling there in Asia? That's very unusual. Look at that. Jumi's husband's reaction is more typical. Okay, and if you have entered the gate, I will transmit the rope and Dharma to you. Funny thing here, just between us, he says, if you compose a verse that shows you enter the gate, meaning you become enlightened, I will transmit the verse, the Dharma and the rope to you. I will name you my successor. That's how desperate the fifth patriarch was. He says, after all these years, all the kimchi I've been feeding you, you still haven't entered the gate yet, so I don't care anymore. The very first one who entered the gate, I will nominate you as my successor. So I detect a sense of desperation, and it's not supposed to be funny. Did she do the lemongrass thing too? But without the blood thing. Okay. Okay. All right. 373. Sheng Xiu made obeisance and left. 7 days passed, but he was unable to compose a verse. His mind was agitated and confused, and his thoughts and mood were uneasy.
神秀作礼而出，又经数日，坐骑不成，心中恍惚，神思不安。
I think this is where this conversation took place after Sheng Xiu submitted his first verse, right? And he says, the body is like a Bodhi tree. The mind is like a bright mirror stand. Time and time again, brush it clean. Do not let dust alight, something like that. And so he showed it to the fifth patriarch. Fifth patriarch says, pretty good, but not quite there yet. You haven't entered the gate yet. So he explained to him, the fifth patriarch says, this is what you're supposed to see, the self-nature, and that things are dust and moving, and you should realize that as soon as I spoke those words, okay? But since you didn't, therefore I want you to go back and meditate on these words I just explained to you right now for 1 or 2 days, okay? So anyway, so Sheng Xiu made obeisance, okay, bowed to the fifth patriarch, okay, and he came back, but because several days passed, more than 2 days passed, but he could not compose another verse because all the meditation didn't help him. He was too agitated, okay, too confused, and he is very unhappy himself, very unhappy. 374, he was as if in a dream, whether walking or sitting down, he could not be at peace.
犹如梦中人，行坐不乐。
So poor Sheng Xiu, the fifth patriarch basically was torturing him. I had something tells me that the fifth patriarch knew that Sheng Xiu couldn't make it, would not be able to make it, but he tortured him more and said, I tell you what, it's not bad, but you know, haven't quite, the verses, your poem shows, is a clear proof that you haven't entered the gate yet. But you know what? If you enter the gate, this is what you're supposed to know, you're supposed to see. So that's what you see, that all the 10,000 states are dust, and so forth. And you become your self-nature. At this very moment right now, I just explained to you this principle. You should realize you see your self-nature, but then you can't. So go back, meditate on what I just taught you right now for 1 or 2 days. Why 1 or 2 days? Because it takes you more than 1 or 2 days, Sheng Xiu would not make it. And Sheng Xiu, sure enough, he went back for several days, he couldn't do it. Okay, why not? Because he was too agitated, meaning that his chant skills are not that good enough yet. He could not drop the greed and the disappointment in himself for failing to measure up to his teacher's expectations. He couldn't take it. And this is what you feel for Sheng Xiu, because he looked up to the fifth patriarch. The fifth patriarch is idol. He really was Sheng Xiu's idol. And Sheng Xiu looked up to him, and he like his world was destroyed, came down as soon as fifth patriarch says, no, you are not meeting my expectation. you are not worthy. And so that's why it really bothered him. And then the fifth patriarch said, just right there, do you still have an opportunity for the next 1 or 2 days to make it? And if you don't, in 1 or 2 days, doesn't matter how long, you will not make it. That's what it means. And sure enough, the text says that Sheng Xiu was like a zombie. He walked around and he could not overcome his own self-disappointment. So that was the last thing the fifth patriarch did for Sheng Xiu, to give him a last chance he had with the fifth patriarch, and he blew it. And that's it. After that, he will never be able to see his nature. And you have to feel for Sheng Xiu. I feel for Sheng Xiu. Okay? I feel that maybe I'm too Vietnamese, maybe I'm too Americanized, but I think that it's a little bit cruel of the fifth patriarch to let him down like that. It doesn't have to be that way. I feel sad for Sheng Xiu. The guy gave his life to the fifth patriarch. And the fifth patriarch took everything out of him. And says, you just are not good enough. That's how tough Chan is under the fifth patriarch. That's why sixth patriarch had to run away. When you think about it, it's not conducive, it's not a nurturing environment. You remember, this is the fifth patriarch, meaning back then, the Chan school in China was still primitive, very much like our Chan in the US nowadays. See, we are second, third generation. We have quite a ways to go. Okay? So I really feel for Sheng Xiu. He was in a dream, a bad dream. Okay, but the Chinese put it very eloquently, as if he was in a dream. No, he was in a nightmare. But the Chinese, he was in a dream. It's more like a nightmare, agree or disagree? He's a nightmare. I mean, he can't sleep, he can't eat, he can't think, he can't meditate, he's agitated, okay? Whether walking or sitting down, he could not be at peace. That's hardly Chan meditation at all. Okay, 376. 2 days later, a young boy chanting that verse passed by the threshing room. As soon as I heard it, Hui Neng knew that the writer had not seen his original nature.
复2日，有一童子于追访过，唱诵其迹。慧能一闻便知此迹未见本性。
复2日 here in Chinese actually stronger than says and meaning 2 days later. I don't know how else to. And this is where I feel that how compassionate Master Hui Neng really is. 复2日 here, a Chinese person, a real Chinese person here, not a Taiwanese person. Oh, but you missed the first part. Okay? 复2日 here, here's how I read it. 复2日 is mean 2日 is 2 days. 复 is at 2 more days. It's not 2 days later, 2 more days. What's the difference between 2 more days and 2 days later? There's a very subtle difference. I hope the Chinese person gets it. He says, 2 more days passed. Changes to that, Xianjie. It's not 2 days later. 2 more days passed. 复2日. Fu here is a verb, not an adverb. See, it goes to prove even the Chinese don't get it. Okay, Taiwanese person. Aren't you glad you're not Chinese?
Sorry, I didn't miss. I meant 复2日. Is it stronger? What was the question?
It's not stronger.
What was the question? Sorry, I missed
what kind
it.
of wimp are you?
I missed the question.
复2日 it means 2 days, 2 more days passed, not 2 days later.
Right. 再过2日.
再过2日, that's right. That's 复 here meaning in 白话 is 再过2日.
I agree with Master.
It's always a safe thing to agree with Master.
But I don't know. I agree with Master, but I don't know how does it make.
Why does it say 复2日? This is the words. Remember, these are the words of Huineng, the 6th patriarch. Notice that 2 more days later, a boy passed in, and as soon I heard it. So this is the famous 6th patriarch relating the story. It says 2 more days passed. A boy walked by my area and he chanted the verse, and I heard it. Okay, so these are his words. That's why the 复2日 means 2 more days have passed. If it were Fa Hai, the guy who transcribed this, the 2 days later is okay. But when it comes from the mouth of the 6th patriarch, it's 2 more days passed. It's a difference. There is very subtle difference. Very important to point out. Yes, go ahead, Korean person.
Where's the faucet?
Jumang Temple. Faucet is right there, honey. Just behind the wall. Open the door. There's a bathroom right there. Yeah, go ahead.
헬로 마스터, 질문이 있습니다. 저의 생각에 제가 아는 스님 중에서 저도 신수 스님이 가장 불쌍하다고 생각하고 가장 슬픈 이야기라고 저도 생각합니다. 한국 스님 우선 먼저 1부까지 해주세요.
Master, I also think the Venerable Shenshu is very poor and it's a very sad story.
Okay, I will not torture Sang-Wook anymore. 复2日 here means that from Master Huineng's perspective, he heard of Sheng Xiu being agitated and being miserable for 7 days. And the 5th patriarch didn't do anything. And even for 2 more days later, okay, 2 more days has passed, nothing is being done, either from the 5th patriarch camp. And that's why Master Huineng says, my God, the 5th patriarch is so tough. He let himself for 7 days and 2 more days. Okay? You see the Huineng, Master Huineng is so compassionate. It shows his compassion right there. The guy is miserable 7 days, and then he has to be miserable 2 more days before Master Huineng was able to hear the verse from the boy chanting it, because Master Huineng was illiterate. He couldn't read. Okay? So this is 2 more days pass. It shows Master Huineng's compassion. Fu is compassion. 2 more agonizing days passed. That's what it means. Okay? And a young boy, they chanted these things, they run around, they make noises, and they chanted these verses, okay? And they happened to be running around the temple, so they were at the threshing room where Huineng was. And as soon as Master Huineng says his own self, he says, when I heard it, I knew that the writer had not seen his original nature. What does it tell you? That Master Huineng was already enlightened. He says, I knew. See, in Chinese, 慧能一闻便知. So as soon as he heard it, I knew. I knew that the writer has not seen his original nature. So by threshing the rice at the 5th Patriarch Temple for 8 months, he went to the 5th Patriarch Temple, okay, not enlightened yet. He was told to go back in the back room and thresh rice, and he did one thing, thresh rice all day and night, day and night, day and night for 8 months, and he became enlightened. That's how he knew that Sheng Xiu's verse is that of someone who is not enlightened yet. I'm not sure I explained this in the first pass. Next, 378. Although he had not been formally taught, he already recognized the great meaning. He asked the boy, what verse are you reciting?
虽未蒙教授，早识大义，遂问童子曰：“诵者何记？”
Again, a little bit of technicality in the Chinese language. What happened to a Chinese person? She disappeared again on me. I mean, the sutra lecture is not as important as going and torture the people who do long sits. Okay. 为蒙教授 in Chinese. There's 蒙. Meng here is not formally taught. Meng here is to what? Taiwanese person, I'm desperate. I mean, there's no Chinese person for me to pick on. For some reason, the Chinese all disappear. As soon as I want to talk to them about their subtleties of the language in the Chan language, they all disappear, Chinese people. And they ignore me too. They talk to each other only in that room. I think they're telling each other, ignore master. He doesn't know Chinese. He speaks nonsense. Okay. Meng here.
Meng normally is referring to people who are ignorant, like are not yet, are still not covered yet, not being taught, are still needs to be taught.
Meng here is, has a connotation. Oh, that another Chinese person. Okay, Meng. What does Meng mean in Chinese?
Yeah, Meng is so it's very polite way. So it's like I didn't got to have the chance to be taught.
No.
I just walked in. I don't have contacts, master. It is a
God, send me some real Chinese people.
Hmong. I think it is the opportunity. It's a very honor, right? I don't have honor.
It's a polite way.
Yeah, you Taiwanese, take a break. Meng here is to encounter, okay? But encounter something that is very special, very wonderful, okay? Encounter a teaching. Meng here meaning refers to Meng, a teacher. Meng, a good no advisor. Meng, the teaching of a good no advisor. Chinese people disagree with me. Yellow.
I think that's what we were saying, but we didn't say very precisely. And I agree the translation of formally taught is not correct.
It's not formally taught. It's very humble. He says, I'm a lowly person. I haven't have a chance to encounter the great teacher, the great teaching. It's very humble. It's very precise. Remember, I'm a peasant. I am illiterate. So for me to encounter this wonderful teaching from this wonderful teachers out of my class, that's the meaning of the Hmong in my mind. It's very factual. It's very true. Huineng here is not being, he's not pretending to be humble or anything. He says, for a person of my social status, of my upbringing, of my educational level, okay, I have no chance to Hmong, to encounter this kind of teaching, this kind of teacher. Is that clear? It's very factual. He's not pretending at all. Like we now, oh no, I'm not that good. 过奖了. Like the Chinese like to say that when you praise them, no, 你过奖了, right? They say, what did my master say? I give up. Go ahead, Jewel Mountain Temple.
헬로 마스터. 제가 질문 드리고 싶었던 점은 신수대사 입장에서는 회사로 치면 내가 평생을 보스를 위해서 일을 했는데 어느 날 해능이라는 낙하산 인사가 와서 내 자리를 뺏겼다라고 생각할 수 있고 그래서 해능대사를 위협했다고 생각합니다. 그럼 여기에서 관계를 봤을 때 오조의 홍인대사와 신수대사의 관계에서 누구의 잘못입니까?를 질문드리고 싶습니다.
So Shenshu devoted the entire life to his boss, but a new person came and took his position. So he got threatened. So in this situation, whose fault? Is it the fault of fifth patriarch or fourth of Shenshu?
成就, not 贤哲. 贤哲 is my disciple. Oh, sorry, Daniel. I didn't mean to make fun of you. So much.
마스터가 좀 부연 설명하면 신수세사가 열심히 한 만큼 더 속상하고
We don't
더
need to
화가
listen to your
나고
translation, honey.
그러니까 이런 관계에서 홍인대사와 신수대사의 관계에서는 신수대사가 열심히 하는 사람일수록 더 억울한 마음이 들었을 것 같은데 누구의 잘못인지 질문 드립니다.
Now you can translate.
So, Venerable Shenshu worked very hard.
成就,
Shenshu.
贤哲. Hey, old monk, he's making fun of you. Poor old monk, I mean.
So he worked very hard, but he got nothing. So in the relations between fifth patriarch and then the Shenshu, so
成就.
Shenshu.
成修. It's very, very gentle. 成修.
So whose fault?
Repeat after me. 成修.
Shenshu.
Okay, it's okay. Remember, we're discussing very profound principles here until Sangwoo comes along and destroys Sheng Xiu's name. So whose fault is it? It's Sheng Xiu's fault. Who else? When you cultivate Jumi, you fail or succeed, it's all your fault. You cannot blame anyone. I blame the fifth patriarch out of compassion, but ultimately the fault rests in you. There's nothing wrong with failing. Okay? There's in the U.S. there's a saying: the harder you fall, the more you deserve it. Okay. In fact, in as far as Chan cultivation goes, Mahayana cultivation, the greater the failure, the bigger the success. Okay. It turns out that in this case here, had Sheng Xiu been cultivating under the sixth patriarch, he would have become enlightened. I feel, because I know how the sixth patriarch taught me. Okay. It took immediately. The virtuosity is incredible. So for Sheng Xiu to put out so much of his effort into this cultivation, if it were done under the tutelage of the sixth patriarch, he would have been enlightened already. But still, you cannot blame the fifth patriarch, Jumi. Okay? You have to blame yourself. Why is that? You cannot say, oh, like you would say, you say, I'm out of here. I'm going to go to sixth patriarch. It doesn't work like that. Okay? The reason he has to cultivate under the fifth patriarch, not the sixth patriarch, is because he doesn't have enough blessings to be taught by the sixth patriarch. You cannot say, I'm out of here, I'm going to go to sixth patriarch. You go to sixth patriarch, you will not understand anyway. Okay? So that's why the fault is Sheng Xiu. It's called life. It's just life. You fail, and eventually, in the future, you succeed. You cannot say, I cultivate. Unless I succeed, I will stop cultivating. You keep on cultivating. You try your best. All right? You don't demand. Like you make demands on your husband. It's different. You demand a washer and dryer, more money, more cars. Okay? That's different. In cultivation, you try your best and you fail, you keep on trying and trying and trying. And it turns out, the one thing I would fault the fifth patriarch here is I would say, if I were the fifth patriarch, I would say, no, Sheng Xiu, I appreciate your services. I know you're not good enough yet, but let me give you a tip. Okay? Don't attack Hui Neng. Help him so that in the future, when he teaches, he'll have to teach you. That's where the fifth patriarch failed Sheng Xiu. That's all. That's the only thing he could have done. If I were the fifth patriarch, Hong Ren, I would say, Sheng Xiu, let me give you a tip to show my gratitude to you. I don't want you to, after I retire and go to the Bahamas, and you say, why did you tell me? And that's what Sheng Xiu would spend his life. And he would never tell anyone that. He would spend the rest of his life saying, I wish the fifth patriarch had told me, had clued me in about how special this Hui Neng guy is, so that I would have planted some blessings with him so that I can learn from this guy. Because deep down, for a guy like Sheng Xiu, becoming enlightenment is more important than being an ex-patriarch, I feel. Sheng Xiu is true to himself. That's the best he could do. But it's the fifth patriarch who failed to clue him in. A little bit brutal on the fifth patriarch. So good question, Jumi. But remember, you cannot blame people. All failures rests upon your husband's shoulders. Okay. So it's that even though I haven't yet been honored with the teaching, Meng here should be translated. Xian, please change it. Even though, although I have not been honored with receiving the teaching. Show here is to receive. Okay? Even though he had not been have not been honored with receiving the teaching, he already recognized the great meaning. The great Da Yi here is not meaning. The great principle. Yi here, from a teacher perspective, is that I mean to tell you this principle. I intentionally, Yi is intention. Okay? Da Yi is my well-meaning intention to teach you this great principle. So the Da Yi here, I feel that translating into English is more precise than the Da Yi here. You leave it like that to the Chinese, it's misinterpreted. So that's why the translation of great meaning here is syntactically correct, but it failed to convey the teaching here. The great principle. There's no great meaning. There's no meaning. Only the great principle. Again, all the Chinese disappear except for Chu Hong. And Chu Hong says, I agree with Master as well. Yeah. That Yi here is meaning, that's correct, but it's not what Master Hui Neng says, the great teaching. Okay? The meaning is the Buddha meaning. The great teaching here meaning that the great teaching from the Patriarch to me. Okay? He asked the boy, what verse are you reciting? Okay, next, 380. Barbarian, you didn't know? Replied the boy. The great master has said that birth and death are a great matter for people in the world.
童子曰：“尔者葛僚，不知大师言，世人生死事大。”
Again, the translation a little bit off, but it's okay. I don't want to beat it to death because it doesn't add much to your wisdom. Okay, but this is okay. Okay, it's just that if you translate this and you write you're a script writer for the next sitcom, situation comedy, I would not translate it like this. It lacks the humor and the liveliness, but it's okay. Okay, it's good enough for half Chinese, half American. Okay, so the boy says, 381, desiring to transmit the road and Dharma, he ordered his disciples to compose verses and bring them to him for him to see. For him to see.
欲得传付依法，令门人坐记来看。
So the boy, so the Master Huineng, because he's being illiterate and being poor and being from frontier regions, okay, that's where the only place he could find could afford to stay. Going to a better region would be too expensive for him. Okay, so that's why he's called barbarian. Barbarian meaning that's the only place where you can really live and subsist is in the wilderness. That's why you're surrounded by beasts, by peasants, by sheep, and such. So the word barbarian here in China is very precise, and it's just a fact of life. But coming from the mouth of a kid, that's insulting, you know. So that's why I said, it's okay the fifth patriarch to call someone a barbarian, but guess what? All his disciples also started calling the sixth patriarch barbarian. Okay, now, when the fifth patriarch called Huineng barbarian, is in order to provoke him. He says, you barbarian also want to become a Buddha? And the Huineng says, well, barbarians have a Buddha nature too, just like you. Okay, so Huineng was not offended at all. So Huineng passed the test. But unfortunately, for losers who were watching it, they say, oh, Master Hongren called Huineng barbarian, therefore it's okay for us to call him barbarian as well. And so that's how it is. But that's the price you have to pay as a teacher. Sometimes at that very moment he had to provoke and needle Huineng to see how he would react. And in doing so, he's exposing himself to misunderstanding. And that's, as a teacher, you have to do that. You can't please everyone. It's not like a salesman where you try to please everyone. The teacher says, oh, I don't care. If you misunderstand, I don't care. Okay? I'm a teacher. I do what I'm supposed to do. Okay? I'm not looking for your approval. And so the boy told the Huineng that he's supposed to write a verse and for him to see. Okay, I think Qian made the changes already. Fine. 383. The person who has awakened to the great meaning will inherit the rope and Dharma and become the sixth patriarch.
若悟大义，即复依法为第六祖。
Okay, meaning principle. I prefer principles, if you will. Please bear with me. Next, 384. Our senior, Samguk is Sheng Xiu, wrote this marklet verse on the wall of the south corridor.
神秀上座于南廊壁上书无相记。
So, 1383, the commentary here is that when the person who has awakened to the great principle will be named successor and will become the sixth patriarch, 384, our senior Sheng Xiu, this is the words for the boy there, this insolent boy, who, I don't care who you are, but I don't care, you may be very bright, very wise, very high status, rich, comes from rich family, okay? But you don't call an adult this barbarian. You know, that's wrong upbringing. You know, this boy should be slapped right away, okay? There's no excuse for that. The parents have to catch him and say, hey, boy, you have to be respectful to adults, okay? Besides, you live in a temple. It's not like you live in a royal palace or something. You know, I would understand a status mindset. But you live in a temple. Temple, we're all beggars. You know better than anyone else. So our senior Sheng Xiu wrote this marvelous verse, okay? This is the problem with all these people. They use this verse, these words, marvelous, which they have no clues on what it means. But this is typical of the Chinese. They say, 无相. That's marvelous. There's no such a thing for these people. They shouldn't be using words like this. Okay? 386. The great master ordered everyone to recite it, for to cultivate in accord with this verse is to avoid falling into the evil destinies and is of great benefit.
大师今人皆诵，依此既修，免堕恶道；依此既修，有大利益。
Xiantie, you see how the English translation, it is so awkward? It's not English at all. Okay, but anyway, we're not gonna try to correct the semantics. It doesn't affect your wisdom at all. Okay, that's why I ignore these things. But the oh, look at her. Oh, look at her. Oh no, you don't look the same anymore. Look at her. Give her food. Give her something. A candy. Yeah. No, wrong pocket. I give you some chocolate next time. How many hours? And what was the last long? How the longest the last was?
3 hours, 40 minutes. That wasn't that much of improvement.
Okay, no chocolate. Okay, so but congratulations. Go get some food to eat. You need to comfort yourself. This is very important. Right now is the time for you to get a bowl of that delicious yellow noodle thing. Go eat. Yeah. Reward yourself. Good job. She should have seen her face. Scary woman. Master, will you tell this woman to let me unbuckle? She was threatening her own instructor. Okay, are we back to learning words of wisdom here? 1386. Yeah. Okay. Irrelevant. Okay. It's just the boys' words. Who cares? 388. Huineng said, I too would like to recite it to create an affinity. Superior one, I have been pounding rice here for over 8 months and have not yet been to the front hall.
慧能曰：“我亦要诵此节来声援上人，我此踏随八顾逾越。”
Okay. So, 389. I hope that the superior one will lead me before the verse to pay homage.
望上人引至祭前礼拜。
All right. So the master Huineng called the boy Shangren, which is translated superior one. Okay. So he says, yes, I'm barbarian. Basically, he says, I'm a barbarian, therefore you are a superior one compared to you. I'm a barbarian, so that's not a problem. He's not being sarcastic at all. There's a difference. The boy, when he says, this barbarian, you haven't been taught yet, you haven't heard the news yet. He's being sarcastic, he's being condescending. But when Huineng says, superior one, he says, what was he doing? He's basically recognizing the view of the boy, that he's better than him. The boy is better than him. So that's why he calls him superior one. He's not being sarcastic, he's not being bitter. He just said, you address me as a barbarian, think I'm illiterate and so forth. Yeah, of course, you're superior. Not a problem with me. See that? No bitterness at all. Francis, no bitterness. Okay? And I hope, so in humility, so no bitterness, but also very humble. He says, I really hope that you will have some compassion and bring me to the front hall where I've never been there yet. I mean, would you believe? I've been here threshing rice for 8 months and I haven't been anywhere. All I know is this room and a toilet. This is behind the wall. Okay, so you see how barbarians live. 391. The boy then led him to the verse to bow. Huineng said, Huineng cannot read. Please, superior one, read it to me.
童子引至祭前礼拜，慧能曰：“慧能不识字，请上人为读。”
392. Then an official from Jiangzhou named Chang Riyong read it aloud.
时有江州别驾姓张，名日用，便高声读。
393. After hearing it, Huineng said, I too have a verse. Will the official please write it for me? The official replied, you too can write a verse? That is really rare.
慧能闻以遂言，亦有一计，望别驾为书。别驾言：如亦作记，其事稀有。
So Huineng came up there and was brought to the front hall by the boy, and Huineng look at the wall, and he says, "What are all these things?" Turned to the boy and said, "Will you read it for me?" And the boy is hesitating. And he said, "Maybe I should, have some more fun, huh? Make fun of this barbarian, this Yeah. But there is an official who's standing there who decided to read it for Hui Neng. Okay? Hui Neng, and Hui Neng heard it once. Think about it. Once. For a literate person, he heard it once. He says, I do have a verse myself too. So the official says, really? Wow, that is something else. 395. Hui Neng said to the official, if you wish to study the Supreme Bodhi, do not slight the beginner. Lowest person may have the highest wisdom. The highest person may have the least wisdom.
慧能向别驾言：欲学无上菩提，不得轻于初学。下下人有上上智，上上人有没意志。
396. If you slight others, you create limitless, boundless offenses.
若轻人即有无量无边罪。
Okay. Let me look at real quickly. Okay. Yeah, I was criticizing Mr. Warren Buffett. No more money. No money mean what money mean more. Story in my life. So now, Hui Neng immediately told the official. He said, "You an official." I added the you an official. Okay, you should know better. You see that? Isn't that beautiful? To switch gear from addressing a boy as Shang Zuo, superior one, to an official, it says, hey, you. Now he takes a condescending tone. He says, let me tell you something, sir. The flip is incredible. For a guy who has been threshing rice for 8 months. Because remember the 10,000 states are thus. That's the state of Vermo Hui Neng. He says, if the boy is condescending towards me, I am thus. When the official is condescending towards me, I don't have to be thus. And that's the 10,000 dharmas are thus. Get it? No, you don't. I don't care. Okay, so he says, in Vietnamese called sửa lưng, meaning how is it translate sửa lưng into English? Take a break. Hui Neng immediately rectify him, straighten him out. Okay, sửa lưng, straighten him out. He says, "Hey, Mr. Official, you're an official. You should know better than this." Okay, if you are here, you study the Buddha Dharma and the Supreme Bodhi, do not slight the beginner. Why not? The lowest people have the highest wisdom. The highest people have the least wisdom. That's why I made fun of Buffett, who has high stature and to engage in just making money off the misery of others, like selling Coke, okay, Coca-Cola, and poison the world. Okay. To me, that's a wrong way to make money. There are plenty of ways to make money that's a lot more beneficial to society. If you have wisdom, you're not supposed to do that. Okay? Someone has to say it. I wish I could, I wish he had given me a lot more money before I opened my big mouth. Okay? But it's too late now. you wish to study Supreme Bodhi, do not slide beginner, because it's not about time, okay? That lowest people like me have the highest wisdom, that's a fact. Highest people like you, official, have least wisdom. That's why you're still here. That's why you slide me. That's a fact. Okay? In particular, let me tell you, sir, that when you slide others, meaning when you like me, people like me, it's not just others. He says, if you, Qingren, okay, if you slide others, what's implied here, others like me. It's not just others. It's okay to slide others, but you don't want to slide others like me. I love Huineng's when he shu lung, when he let them have it. I mean, God, this is so beautiful. You can see the flip from a guy here. Oh, superior one, please bring me to the front. I've never been to the front. And then as soon as we got to the front, and he immediately let the official have it. Okay, pretty incredible. If you slide others like me, you create limitless, boundless offenses because it's a fact. You should be afraid. It's such emphatic teaching, and that embodies kindness and compassion. From an illiterate, undedicated barbarian. Can you imagine the flip in Huineng from being a wood gatherer to listening to that verse on the Buddha Dharma, and overnight, in a matter of months, become enlightened with no help from a fifth patriarch, except a place for him to thatch rice and not worry about mom, worry about food, worry about a roof over his head, worry about clothing. That's what the fifth patriarch did for him. Do you understand now, you Koreans, you Vietnamese, you people out there, Americans, why the patriarchs, why people have to provide for you when you cultivate? You cannot afford to get distracted by mundane worries. Jumi takes care of all those worries for you. Got it? 398. A few more minutes, please bear with me. The official said, recite your verse, I will write it out for you. If you attain the Dharma, you must take me across first. Do not forget these words. Huineng's verse reads,
别驾言，汝但诵记，无为汝书。如若得法，先须度无，勿忘此言，慧能记曰。
All right. Text, originally Bodhi has no tree. The right mirror has no stand. Originally there is not a single thing. Where can thus alight?
菩提本无树，明镜亦非台。本来无一物，何处惹尘埃？
It's a very good translation, by the way, into English. Okay? I would change slightly, but otherwise it's beautiful. It's a very good translation here. You should memorize it. It's a very good job. Okay? I've been criticizing our things, but this is where they do pretty good. Okay? Okay. So going back to slide 398, I made a few comments and we stop, and then we continue with Hui Neng's verse next time around. You will, okay? So the official said, just recite your verse. I added, just recite your verse, okay? I will write it out for you, meaning that the official took it very well. Remember, this is a barbarian who said, who corrected him, who chided him, and the official didn't object to it at all. He, being an official, no matter even a lower status official, he's still entitled to disregard Hui Neng and say, you are a barbarian. Remember, China used to be very class-oriented, so that official there is much higher social status than Hui Neng, okay? And yet he took Hui Neng's criticism very, very well. So he says, no problem, recite your verse, I will write it out for you. In other words, you are right, thank you. Okay? If you obtain the Dharma, you must take me across first. This is very Chinese. No class. It's so petty. If I'm going to write a verse for you on the condition that if your verse is any good at all, then you owe me. It's the Chinese call 打关系, you know, that now you owe me because, because I helped you write the verse. I mean, how petty can you be? That's why he's probably a small, petty official. Chinese people comment, go ahead. What happened to Chu Hong? She disappears now. I can't pick on Chinese at all today. Taiwanese. Okay? Don't you agree, her Taiwanese version, that the Chinese can be so petty? Go ahead. Huh?
I agree with Master.
Stole it, the line from a book from China. So agree, it is so Asian. I mean, to me, it's, the Americans wouldn't do this, would we? No, we just like it for our culture. We have more class than this. But no, the Chinese, I don't care. But if I remember, you owe me, and I demand repayment. Do not forget these words. He has emphasized, do not forget. All right, time is up. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your attention. I see you next time. Sayonara. I mean, goodbye.